I think these are fun. It's interesting to hear people's perspectives.
I agree. Welcome, everybody. We hope that you have enjoyed the previous sessions that you've been to here at DEMOFEST. We've got a great one today. Thank you for joining us for Improving Precision to Accelerate Deal Progression with Chad Wilson. My name is David Peck. I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Consensus, and I will be your moderator for today's session. DEMOFEST is presented by Consensus. Consensus is intelligent demo automation software that helps scale pre-sales with interactive video demos. You can learn more at consensus.com or view the automated micro demo at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. Consensus is proud to provide this event for free to all attendees. However, we would like to invite each of you to donate to our company's humanitarian organizations if you would like to. You can learn more about this and donate by visiting the DEMOFEST Gives Back booth in our virtual expo hall in the Booths tab or at the link in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. We invite you to join with us in our DEMOFEST community on Discord, which is growing. Our community is where you can connect with speakers, get exclusive access to content and events, and where the conversation will continue long after DEMOFEST has ended. We encourage all attendees to join us and so many others that are on the Discord right now. You can join our community at the link in the Docs tab. We encourage you to participate in today's session. On the right of your console, you can see a few ways to engage with us throughout the session and engage with Chad as well. The chat function will allow you to engage with us as well as other attendees. Throughout the session, you may see a few polls. We have one poll today, and we encourage you to participate as your feedback is important to us. Our speaker will be taking questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but we encourage you to ask questions at any time in the Q&A box, and I'll put a reminder in the chat box for you. If at any time you're having any technical difficulties, head to the gear on the bottom of your screen, which is shown here, and that'll show up, that'll pop up a help document for you to look through and help you troubleshoot any common issues that you may encounter. And now the best part of this is I'd like to introduce our speaker, Chad. Chad Wilson currently serves as Vice President of Curriculum to Win Global with 20 plus years of experience as a senior sales leader. He partners with C-level leaders to build high-performing teams that consistently overachieve revenue targets with a laser focus on customer experience. He is passionate about helping marquee companies accelerate the development of their top performers. Together with his team, he has created world-renowned programs for pre-sales, customer success, sales, and implementation teams to help them execute live, virtual, or video-based client engagements. And with that, I'll turn the rest of the time over to you, Chad.
Hey, thanks, David. Appreciate that. Team, it's great to be with you today. I wanted to start our time together with a bit of a physics experiment. So what we have here on screen are a series of pendulums. And each of these pendulums is connected at the top by a common string. So the smaller pendulums each have their own string length. And then at the other end is a heavier pendulum. We'll call that the driver pendulum. Now, I'm curious to hear what you think is going to happen. I'm going to pull that pendulum back in this video. It's going to swing perpendicular to the rest. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what you think will happen to the rest of the pendulums as this starts to swing. So I'll open up this poll. Do you think they're going to all swing together at the same speed? Do you think they're each going to move at a different speed, look like a snake? One will swing at the same rate as the driver and the rest remain basically still? Or do you think they're going to all move, but in a random order? I'll give you just a few minutes to respond. All right. So it looks like the leader so far is they're going to move at a different speed, look like the snake. I'll tell you, that is the most common response. Let's take a look and see what happens. I'll reveal the answer in just a minute. So let's watch this together. All right, were you surprised at what happened there? So the most common answers that we see tend to be B, that they're going to look like a snake, but that's not actually what ends up happening. The correct answer is that really only one of them moves. And so why is this? The one that moves is the one that has the same length as the driver pendulum. And so this is a physical representation of resonance. So if we think about resonance, it's when one body, if you will, moves with another one when they share the same natural frequency. And we use this word resonance when we're talking with, interacting with another person, that, hey, I'm resonating with them. And what we want to do when we're talking about precision is build resonance with our audience, help them achieve the things they're trying to do. And so what I want to suggest to you is this is a common problem that a lot of us face. We tend to latch on to the audience member that is head nodding, interacting with us, that's heavily engaged. All right, it feels good when the audience is being responsive and they're picking up what we're laying down. But if we ignore the rest of the stakeholders, if we don't highly personalize the experience to them, they remain basically still, meaning they don't make a purchase decision. And so what I want to suggest today is that really what we need to do, and I think Garen said it well, is curate what the buyer needs when they need it. He said that earlier on today's keynote, is we need to figure out what does each stakeholder care about? What are their motivations? Not only what do they want to see, but what do they care about and why? Why would they change what they're doing? And we need to tailor our approach with precision to address those needs. And so what I want to suggest today is that we maximize our resonance when our message connects to the motivations of our audience. And in this analogy, the length of the pendulums represents the motivations. The length of the string on the driver represents the message. So it's unlikely we're going to dramatically change everybody's motivations throughout a sales process, while we will influence them and we will bring them to a consensus around a buying decision. What we really can control to help drive this forward is we can control our approach and the way that we prioritize to build resonance. Now, I want to say a couple of things. I recognize there's a lot of different ways that we do this. Without question, we've been talking a lot this week about how we can coach buyers, how we can predict what they need and provide content to them. 100%, completely agree. I'm not going to talk about that in this session because that's being really well covered in other sessions. So whether we're talking about kind of pre-built self-service videos and assets, personalized or prioritized assets, or maybe even bespoke one-off assets, all of those contribute to what we're talking about. Really what I'm talking about in this session is what can you and I do in terms of our engagement with clients? How can we be more precise, leveraging the information that we have available to us to build resonance with stakeholders to influence their purchase decisions? So as we go throughout the talk today, the talk will have a bit of a discovery slant. And in the abstract that I provided, I recognize that a lot of us have discovery methodologies in place. And so my hope is that a lot of what I talk about today isn't necessarily new to you, but rather that we sharpen the focus a little bit and we take another look at what we've been doing in discovery and how we've been applying discovery to potentially change your perspective a little bit on what we should be doing with discovery, change the mindset, and inspire a higher level of execution. And if we can do that, then I believe that we'll accelerate deal progression. We'll get that done. Tremendous benefits if we're able to do that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The other point that I want to make is, my point of view on discovery is that a lot of discovery processes that are out today that folks are using, and I've seen some comments in the chat in previous sessions, they're really focused on qualification and they're internal focus. They're meant to facilitate or reinforce a sales process. And what I want to suggest is that we should go further than that, and we should think about discovery as an opportunity to understand what people really care about. Not the what's, but the whys. How are they going to make decisions, and how are they going to get in? How are we going to help to connect with that? So that's what we're going to get after today. As we get into this, I'm going to cover some content that comes from a couple of resources I want to put in front of you real quickly. Two books that Bob Riestall, our founder, and Dan Conway, our president CEO, put out. Demonstrating to Win. Many of you are probably familiar with that one. That one's been out for quite a while. Some of the content that I'm going to talk about was first introduced in Demo to Win. We updated and refined that in the Rule of 24, where we talk about kind of the future of B2B client engagement, what client self-serving, and how do we adopt that into our process. Both of those are available on Amazon if you'd like to pick those up. So specifically, as we go throughout today, I want to talk about three things. First, I want to start with motivation. When I say that we maximize resonance when our message aligns with the motivations of our audience, what do I mean by motivation? So I want to walk through that. I want to talk about prioritization. When we have limited time with clients, another stat that was shown on a previous session is only 17% of the buying process is actually meeting with suppliers. So some may perceive that as that it's less important. I would say it's even more important because you have less opportunity to meet with them. So how are you going to prioritize your time to influence what happens next? And then last, I'm going to talk about driving increased levels of interaction, not only in the engagement, but before and after the engagement. And how can we stay top of mind as they're working through this process? So let's start with motivations. And as we get into this, I want to play a bit of a role play for you. This is an unfortunately common scenario. And what we've got here is we've got Hayden and myself. I'm playing the role of a pre-sales person, SC, and Hayden is playing the role of the salesperson. He's got a deal that he's got on the line, and he's looking for my help. So let's see what happens with this. And I'm curious to see in the chat what you think is going on and what's wrong with this. Let's watch this together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know just the guy we can get for the demo. Okay, yeah. Sounds good. Thanks. All right, let's see if Chad is available for Monday.
Hey, Hayden. What's up, man?
Hey, Chad. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Hope you are.
Yeah, good. Just got off the phone with Capital Industrial. Really great opportunity with them. Here's the catch. I need you out there on Monday for a demo. Are you available?
You mean this coming Monday?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Monday. I know it's a short turnaround. I mean, can you make that work?
Jeez, man. I mean, I'm slammed this week. Dang. But I'm always happy to help. So I bet I can work it out. But can you give me a little bit more to focus on? I mean, what's the project all about?
Yeah, it's a huge operation. Easily a couple $100,000 opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about the number too, right? I want to help you out, but I mean, can you give me something to focus on? What do I need to show?
Yeah, just do what you normally do. Like you did that demo last week with Turner. Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, but you remember what happened last week at Turner? I mean, I spent all that time talking about wholesale distribution just to find out they don't even do that. God, I mean, can I at least have a phone call with them?
Yeah, no. I think this is a totally different situation here. I don't think they're not going to be willing to take a call with us anyway. And you know what, Chad? I got a call come in on the other line. I got to run. But if you don't just send me your travel information, I'll make all the arrangements. I'll take care of it. No problem. Are we good? Good for Monday?
All right, man. Sounds good. I'll see you there.
here we go again. Yeah, I'm seeing the chats. Exactly. Not willing to take a call, huge red flag. Do what you normally do. Why does this happen? So yes, there are some sellers that don't know the deals. They're throwing it over the fence to us, right? And they just want us to kind of do the standard thing. They're trying to win it with a demo. That does happen. I think what also happens here is a lot of us, a lot of you have tons of experience in reading the room and working with clients. And the truth is you pull it off a lot of times. And so reps can get complacent around that because they know that we're pretty good at that. The challenge is we're talking about precision. We're not talking about doing a great job. We're talking about winning. And that's the difference here. Eduardo, where do we start? You and I could have coffee and talk about that. We're talking about precision. Like how do we make sure we win? And that's really what we're talking about here. The purpose of a demo is not to educate. It's not to inform. It is to persuade. At the end of this demo, we want people to choose to behave differently. We want them to go back and talk about it in the stakeholder community differently than they did when they came to us. And so if we want to persuade them, then we really need to understand why are we showing what we're showing and what do we want them to do as a result of that? How can we influence future conversations? And so again, coming back to the string length being kind of the analogy for the motivation, let's talk a little bit about motivations. What do we really mean by that? And how do we classify this? So I want to suggest to you that what we're really trying to do is we're trying to figure out how do we pull people to make a decision to move to a new solution. And if we do that, we need to connect to the specific motivations of the audience. I want to suggest that there's three types of audience members. We have operational users who are primarily motivated based on how your solution directly impacts their job. They tend to be self-focused. How is this going to help me specifically? The next type of audience member we might have are management team members. Now, are management team members going to care about the impact of the front line? Sure. But they're primarily going to be motivated based on how we help them drive departmental impacts. And those are typically expressed in terms of improvements in productivity or reduction in risk. The third would be executives. Now, executives will care about the departmental change. They'll probably care about the impact of the front line as well. But if we're talking about motivations, we'll connect most strongly with executive motivations when we talk about how we help them achieve their strategic goals and initiatives. Now, I don't think that this is new news for many of us, right? If we're thinking about it this way, but I want to talk about how to be a little bit more precise about this. When we think about the different motivations of audience members, it means that we need to tailor our message and be very agile in the way we interact with them. And so what I want to suggest is that we think about operational impacts, departmental impacts, and strategic impacts. And that when we're providing materials to clients, when they're consuming videos, when they're in a demo, when we're having follow-up conversations, that we keep a laser focus on what is the impact for this person, and specifically, how do these impacts correlate with one another? Let me give you an example. When we're having discovery conversations, a framework that we teach is CDIM, so current, desired, impact, and metric. If you think about it this way, right? Current state, how is the organization solving the problem today? Or what are they experiencing today? What's the challenge, right? Many of us understand this when we come into a client engagement. The next step would be desired. What do they want to change? What pain do they want to resolve? What gain do they want to achieve? Like, what are they trying to do? And many of you will have deep industry experience that you can bring to the table to help them think about what the future might look like with your solution. The challenge that I see when we get an opportunity to audit demonstrations, sales engagements with some of our clients, the most common challenge that we see is that folks get current, desired, and then they start to solution. I understand what you want, and so I'm going to start to solution. And I get that because we want to help, right? I was a career SE myself, an SE leader. We want to help. The challenge is the further away we get from the true understanding, the true impact for this person, the less precise we can be in the benefit delivery. We start to deliver benefits that are true for the market instead of benefits that are tailor-made and precise for this person. And so what I would recommend is that as you're having discovery conversations, whether that be a dedicated discovery interaction or whether it be an interaction just in time in the middle of a demonstration, and we're seeking to fine tune our understanding, that we go past desired state and we get to impact. If they were to solve the problem, if they were to arrive at the desired state, what difference would it make? So what? Why would you spend time to drive this change? And remember that impact sits at multiple levels. It sits in the operational level. Operational impacts lead to changes at a departmental level. Departmental changes lead to contribute to strategic change. And so if we can think about how those connect, then we can be much more precise in the way we communicate with individuals about how these impacts connect and allow them to drive change. So how do we quantify the impact with metrics, right? How would the organization measure this? There's a lot of information here that we could gather at a high level. Who's reporting on them? Like knowing if there's a meeting where they talk about the metrics that you're trying to drive, that could help us understand who the stakeholders are. Why are they there? Like, is there an executive that owns that? Maybe we don't have access to that person. That could help us identify that person. But the other thing to think of is operational impacts tend to be early indicators of success. If we can help a client precisely understand a near-term operational impact that they can achieve quickly, emotionally and mentally, it helps them get on board to see how that leads to a longer-term strategic change. That's where a lot of people get stuck. Even if think about it, not even from a selling perspective, if you're trying to achieve a long-term goal, a lot of people get paralyzed. It's like, I don't know what to do. That's so far away. It's such a big goal. I don't know what to do. But focusing on operational impacts and understanding how they will drive this change, and if you understand that and you can help communicate that, it goes a long way to helping them see how they can actually get to achieving their goals or relieving the pain that they're experiencing. So if you think about these elements, current desired impact, metric, measurement, result, if you think about that, we want to internalize that through conversations, and then we want to communicate that back. And so if you think about having a conversation or delivering a demonstration, we want to provide context before we get into a particular topic. A lot of times that context comes from current. You give them a scenario. I understand that currently this is the way this is happening. Desire tends to show up in the message or the demo. Like, this is the future state. This is the proof that we can help you get there. And the impact tends to show up in the closing benefit. This is what it really means to you based on what I heard you say, or this is what it means based on my industry experience. Those of you that have been through one of our programs, Demo to Win, will recognize this as tell, show, tell. Right? This is kind of where this starts to show up. So it's really important to be precise about motivations, to go beyond understanding of personas, to go beyond our understanding of the market or our solution, and really listen to what people are saying about the impacts that they want to see, so we can internalize that and communicate that back. Because what I want to suggest to you is, if we focus on motivations, on why they would make decisions, why they would change, why they would sponsor us, then really what that means is we've gained greater influence over their decision making. That's really what this is all about. Okay, the next topic I want to talk about is prioritization. So we've understood buyer motivations. Now what do we do about it? So I want to take a look at another scenario. So I'm curious if you've ever seen this happen. Here's the setup. I'm on a call with two clients, Tanya and Bob. Now, I'm nearing the end of the conversation. I'm just wrapping things up, and this happens. See if you've ever seen this happen before. So in summary, we've helped a lot of organizations just like you comply with the payroll.
Thank you so much, Chad. I'm really sorry. I've got a hard stop at the bottom of the hour, so I've got to go to my next meeting. Thanks so much.
Okay. So do you want to, well, Bob, we'll set up a follow-up meeting.
I've got to go too. Sorry, I'm in that same meeting. See ya.
Okay. Have you seen that before? You just run right out of time. You run right up to the end of it. Now, obviously, with virtual meetings, like, folks can just totally ghost you. Like, I don't think I've ever been in a live meeting where somebody just vanished. But it's particularly challenging because, you've got meetings back to back to back. And if we don't prioritize time for the call to action, that's what happens. So what's the impact of that? a follow-up email, a follow-up demo, a follow-up meeting, right? More work for us because somebody didn't manage the time, whether it's a lot of slides at the beginning before the slide that says demo that took too long, or whether it's us that we took a little time. We need to make sure that we understand the expectations. And so I want to talk a little bit about, I want to offer a recommendation of how we prioritize time in the meeting to make sure that we achieve the objective, which is to drive action in the account and to accelerate the momentum in the account. So I'll revisit this. I made this statement a little bit earlier and said, hey, what is the ultimate purpose of a demo? The ultimate purpose, I believe, is to persuade. We're there to drive action, to change mindsets, to inspire decision-making, to drive this thing forward. And so if that's what we're trying to do, then the best thing we can do to serve the buyer committee is to prioritize everything that we do around their specific needs for each stakeholder. So how do we do that? Well, let's kind of revisit the topic that we talked about with motivations. What I found to be really, really successful is to take a discovery conversation and try to distill it down to the essence. Make it as simple as possible, as clear as possible, what they're trying to accomplish. The best way I found to do that is to think about a departmental metric that there's political will to do something about, that you can align a buying committee around to get energy around solving this. So if we think about it from that perspective, let's take our value pyramid, turn it on the side, and let's map out a strategy. So we call this a win plan. If you think about this, really ideally, we want to work left to right. A lot of times we work right to left. What do I need to show? Here's the list of things that I need to show, which is really helpful than not knowing what you need to show. But ideally, I'd like to start from the strategy and say, okay, what are they trying to accomplish? And then you and I can think about, well, what's the best message? What do they need to see and understand to be convinced that we can help them get that done? So if you think about it this way, let's take a hypothetical situation. And in this hypothetical situation, we're selling a project management solution, right? Just something all of us have been familiar with at some point. And let's say that we have identified that the driving mechanism for this purchase is really coming from the executive team's desire to grow profitability by 15%. So that's ultimately what they're trying to do. Now, they're going to have several strategies as an executive team that they will employ to try to do that. If they're trying to grow profitability, they're probably going to try to grow top-line revenue. That would make sense to me. If I sell project management, I probably am not going to compete for that initiative. That's going to be someone else. They're probably going to try to control miscellaneous expenses. Maybe they quit flying as much. That's going to improve profitability too. That's not going to impact me specifically. But what would impact me is, let's say, a reduction in operating expenses. If I sell a project management solution, I could connect to that executive strategy. So now I want to start to think about, okay, well, what have they said to me in discovery that I can use to connect to? And so what we recommend is building what we call an impact statement. It's a single sentence that clearly articulates the goal that they have and what you need to convince them of in the next interaction. Here's what I've learned. When I talk to reps and I say, hey, what's this deal about? If it takes them 5 minutes to tell me about the deal, it's not because they know that much about it. It's because they're figuring it out on the fly. If I ask you what this deal is about and you can tell me in 30 seconds or less, I will be convinced you know this deal. So that's what we're talking about, precision. What is it really about? Let's make sure the whole team knows what we're trying to do. Then let's pick some operational needs that connect to this impact statement. So let me give you a hypothetical example around this project management scenario. Let's say we were talking to them during discovery and we identified a key departmental need that they had, that they need to increase the efficiency of their current staff. So as we're talking about this comes out. So, okay, well, what would that mean to you? Like, how would you know that you achieve this? And they said, well, really, the focus is profitability. So we're going to grow revenue, and I've been tasked to handle 30% more customers without adding staff. That's what this deal is about. Okay, great. Well, the impact statement then would be to increase efficiency to allow for a 30% increase in customers without adding headcount. That's my true north. The whole sales pitch is about this. So if that's what I know that this is about, that can influence the way I talk about my capabilities. So let's take a look at an example capability. And this could be a demo segment or a tell, show, tell. So the identified need or challenge could be that they told us that key project communications are often sent to the wrong resource. Well, if that's happening, they're spending a lot more time than they need to. It's inefficient. So what could we do to help that? The capability that I might bring to the table is to show how document management and workflow automatically routes information to the correct resource. So I've got the scenario, right? The current state. I've got the desired state and the capability. Well, what have they communicated as the impact? The fulfilled need or the benefit might be that information is routed to the correct resource, so idle time is reduced. That reduced idle time leads to an increase in efficiency. So now I've got some context around how specifically I want to talk about this capability, and I know that I want to position this capability in light of the impact statement so that it leads to the kind of this true north of what we're trying to talk about. Let's take a look at another topic. Let's say that they told us that team leaders are emailed every time a change is made to a project. So they're required to review every change, even if it's minor. Well, it's inefficient. Well, what if your solution had an approval engine? So I'm going to demonstrate, how changes are automatically approved based on configuration. So only changes that require approval are routed to the project leads. Current state, desired state. That's what I'm going to show. But what context am I going to talk about it in? I'm going to use the language that they talk to me about. Project leads only review important changes, reducing email clutter. Maybe that's the word that they told us, improving focus. So the project leads are more focused on what they need to do. If that happens, that leads to an increase of efficiency. So I've got two topics that both lead to my impact statement. And then a third possible topic might be it's difficult to find project information that's stored all over the place. So maybe we're going to talk about how a chat stream kind of organizes information so I can see it all in one place. And if I can see that, then that allows me to quickly respond to requests from the field. Now, that's what they told us. If they're able to respond more quickly to requests from the field gets on it with the customers, they're more efficient, and all of this leads straight up. So what we can see here is we're thinking about what am I going to communicate or demonstrate, and I want to be very precise about how I talk about this so it leads to the impact that the customer is really trying to achieve. That way, everything comes together in a cohesive message, and it's crystal clear how we help them achieve what they're trying to do. All of this frames what we refer to as a demo episode, something that we would take 30 to 45 minutes to communicate to a customer. So if you've got a clear view of the plan, right? We know what we're trying to accomplish. We've got kind of the messaging based on the value pyramid, what the focus of the message is. What we're going to do is we're going to now put this into our demo structure so that this messaging gets applied very intentionally in certain places in our demo structure. And this is really the structure is really what Demo to Win is all about. How do you plan for this demo? How do you deliver it effectively so you win? So that's kind of what that's all about. But what we can see here is that what we're trying to do is say, okay, I've got this discovery information, whether it's prepared in advance, whether I'm getting some of it just in time, because we should be good at both of those. I've got this and I'm thinking about precision. What specifically are they saying? How can I communicate this in a way that is specific to this stakeholder, that shows them how their impacts connect with other stakeholders? So when they go back and talk about this post-engagement, I've built an understanding for them that advances and matures the way they talk about how they're going to move forward. And it helps me stand out from everybody else because I painted a crystal clear picture of my understanding and how they're going to get there. I've shared my expertise from them. That makes a massive difference in them coming to a consensus around what they want to do. So it helps increase momentum. So far we've talked about understanding motivations helps me influence decision-making. Prioritizing my time with clients helps me drive momentum. The last thing that I want to talk about is interaction. How do we facilitate some healthy interaction? So we've got another video here to kind of see what's going on here. So in this situation, I'm doing a demo for Tanya and Bob. They're both in here, and I am trying to drive some interaction and watch what happens on this one. see if you've ever seen this before. So those are some of the benefits that we've seen with advanced portfolio management. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What impacts do you think this could have for your organization? Bob, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Bob, this is going to be your area, so I'd appreciate your thoughts.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear the question. I was on mute. Could you repeat the question?
That's my all-time favorite response from COVID, doing virtual meetings. Sorry, I didn't hear the question. I was on mute. So what happened here? I surprised Bob, and so I want to offer, I want to offer a few ideas about how to drive engagement. Number one is there's been a massive increase in popularity around persona-based demos over the last, say, 5 years. And I was in a demonstration, kind of doing an audit, watching something, and I saw the demonstrator use a persona about Evelyn, the executive, as she was talking about this demonstration. The problem is Catherine was actually in the room, and the person never spoke specifically to Catherine. They spoke to the persona and the kind of the journey that was pre-built. And I'm looking at that, I was like, what a missed opportunity to have a conversation, right? And so when we think about that, we want to speak directly to them. The next thing is prepare them. In particular, when we're in a virtual situation, our audience attention is going to be fractured. There will be things that happen to a particular audience member, whether it's a Slack notification, a text message, an email, whatever it is, a kid coming through the door, something is going to grab their attention. So we need to be mindful of that. Yes, there's techniques we can do to maintain their attention. We're not going to talk about that today. But what I want to talk about is if you're going to engage with somebody, use their name first so they hear it, then paraphrase what you just talked about briefly, and then pose the question. And what I found is when we do that, it kind of respects the fact that somebody might have been pulled off guard, and it prepares them to have a meaningful interaction with me. That's what I care about most. Like, I don't care about calling them out or embarrassing them. I don't want them to be embarrassed. I want them to feel like they can contribute, because if I prepare them for that, their perception of me is going to be better, and it's going to allow them to answer with more precision because they know more what we're talking about. So that would be one recommendation. The other thing is direct focus. If you think about virtual meetings, how many times do you see people present and they share their screen the entire time, and they may be having a conversation and nothing on the screen is relevant to that, but they've got the whole thing. If you think about it in a live demo, let's say that I'm presenting and the screen is over here, and I'm doing a demo, the audience is all looking at the screen, and then there's that moment where we have an interaction. You might say, hey, David, what would that mean to you? And everybody kind of turns and looks at David. That's a natural thing to happen when we're doing that in person. Like, nobody's looking at the screen anymore, the television. Like, we all turn to look at David, and David and I are going to have a quick interaction. And I say, great, we finished that interaction. So, all right, our next topic is, and naturally everybody goes back and looks at the screen. Like, we don't even think about that. In a virtual world, we can curate that experience by thinking about what we're putting in front of them. Like, if we want to have a conversation, consider stopping sharing the screen and have a quick interaction so that you can see each other, look each other in the eye, speak to people. That shift in focus, it re-engages people quickly. And then when you're ready to move on, share the screen. Boom, we're right back. I'm done with this conversation. I'm going to move it forward, right? You're taking control and going through that. And then the last one that I would say is use their language. It is very common, and I fall into this too. I have to catch myself still. We have our way of thinking about things. I bet you've got your own buzzwords, the way you always say it, and it can become second nature. We lose our beginner's perspective because you have so much experience. You've done hundreds or thousands of these things, and you've got this way that you found to be effective, and you don't. It's subconscious that we can kind of go on autopilot with language that we know works. And what I would just say is, let's hold ourselves accountable to continually listening intently to what people are talking about, how they use the language, so that we can incorporate their language. I'll give you an example. I was talking with one of our enterprise clients, and so they're training a few thousand people. And so we have an automated process to do this, right? Enrollment, testing, like automated enrollment, reporting, KPIs, that kind of stuff. And so I was talking with one of their kind of enablement administrators, and he said, I really want to run water through the pipe. And I'm like, so when you say run water through the pipe, what does that mean to you? And he's like, I want to test it end to end, like start to finish, the whole workflow. I want to make sure everything works. I said, got it. So from now on, anytime I talk about testing an end-to-end solution with him, it's like, hey, let's run water through the pipe, because that's how he talks about it. So I'm trying to listen and adapt that language. And that difference, not everybody's going to do this, y'all. If you're really intent on doing that, I promise you, this is a differentiator. Most people are not going to pay this much attention. If you can take a different point of view and just listen for it and use it back, it's going to make a massive difference in the way they think about you and in their perception of you and your company. So what I want to do is, let me come back here real quick. Preparing a slide. I jumped ahead a little bit. I want to put up a bit of a game that we're going to play. Okay. And this game comes from a book from Chip and Dan Heath. In this book, they took a look at how key brands have been remembered. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a series of letters on the screen. And what I'd like for you to do is, without writing them down, I want you to memorize as many as you possibly can in order. And then I'm going to take them off the screen, and I'd like for you to put in the chat as many letters as you can remember in order. Okay? So I'll give you 10 seconds. Don't write them down. Just commit them to memory, and then put them in chat in order, as many as you can remember. Here we go. All right. Go ahead and put in the chat, how many do you remember in order? Go ahead and list them out. Yeah, not bad. All of you got pretty much the same place. Yeah, not bad at all. So oftentimes, when we're able to chat a little bit more about this, oftentimes what I'll ask people, how did you do that? And so what they'll say is, here's the letters. Just so you know, they'll say, well, I'm looking for like phonetics. So I might say, I see JFK and then FB for Facebook and then INAT, and then it's like soup without the O. So there's like these things that they're looking for association. So we're trying to find something that we can build an association with. Some just go like rote memorization. I repeated sections until I got it, and then I went to the next section. I just added on. Like, that's a lot of work. Here's the question. I'm this exact same letters. If all I did was rearrange the spacing, would this have been easier for you? All right, I want you to take note of how this feels. Many of you are probably like, well, yeah, of course it would have been easier. Have you ever considered how a buyer might feel the same way when we start to use their language instead of using things that we're so familiar with? It's like, let's make it easy for them to understand what we're talking about. Let's make it easy for them to go back and have internal conversations that are meaningful about what we help them understand. So think about tailoring your message and rearranging the way you talk about it to reflect what you're hearing them say. That type of precision will make a massive difference. You feel what it feels like, right? You're like, yeah, that would have been easier. Why didn't you just do that the first time? Buyers are often feeling the same way. They get frustrated and confused. And so if we can organize that using their language, it's going to make a massive difference. Not only is it going to make increase momentum and influence decision-making, using their language builds a connection, and it builds resonance and trust with an audience. And so I would encourage you to pay more attention than you might be paying right now. And let's commit to double down, to listen really carefully what buyers are asking for, and communicate it in their terms. If we can do that, it's going to make a massive difference. We talked at the beginning about these pendulums and how easy it is to latch on to the one that's given us the positive vibes, right? They're head nodding, they're interacting with us, they're smiling. Man, it's addictive. we want that, don't we? But we really need to make sure that we're thinking about the rest of the stakeholders and figuring out what do we need to get the similar reaction from them. Ideally, we want all of those pendulums rocking. And if we can do that, then ultimately what we do is we build resonance with our stakeholders. And that's really what we're looking for. And so what I want to do is I want to pause for some Q&A and answer a couple of questions. And then at the end, I've got a couple of final thoughts as we close. All right. So I've got, and feel free to, I've got a couple of questions in here. Feel free to put a few others. If you've got some questions or observations, things you want to chat about, let me know. So one question is, who should lead the discovery meeting with the prospect, the AE, the SE, or tag team? So here's like the ideal situation. I had some reps when I was in industry and I was doing demonstrations. I had some reps I love to work with because they got this. They understood that selling is about creating emotional connections with buyers. And in that situation, we would do it together. Now, the thing is, when we're working with multiple stakeholders, it's really difficult for one person to keep track of what's going on with everybody. Some people can do it. It's very hard. So I find benefit in having more than one person there because you're going to see it through two different perspectives. Traditionally, what we would do is we would have the rep focus primarily on drawing out the business objectives. What is it that they're trying to do so that they could kind of work yellow and green in the value pyramid, departmental and strategic. If they can kind of map that out, I can focus my time for the demo of thinking about how does the solution drive departmental impacts. And so we've got this handoff at the departmental level that I'm working from here to there because it requires detail they probably don't have. They're working from departmental to strategic because they have access I may not have. And that way we could do it together to map this out. I would say that's the ideal process. That's also coming from like an enterprise selling perspective when you do have a little bit more time. From an SMB point of view, if any of you are selling kind of more volume, what I found is to look at this win plan concept and build some win plan templates that deal with common strategies that you've employed to win, and that you meet with the rep to talk about how they tailor it. In that case, sometimes in SMB, it may be that the rep is doing a little bit more of that upfront work, and you're kind of finishing that work from a solutioning perspective. So from that standpoint, it's more about, I think it's more about the roles and how we contribute based on the environment that we're selling in. But in an ideal situation, we do it together. All right, so Lauren says, what's the best way to translate their language to yours or when it's not appropriate? Great question. Okay, so here's how I think about it, Lauren. There are times when, in order to get the deal done, we need to change the buyer's perspective, right? We're competing primarily against no decision or status quo. In those situations, I'm particularly mindful that they understand the trends, the risk of staying where they are. And so sometimes they may have such strong associations to their current state that I do want to use language that's more unfamiliar because I want them to see it from a different point of view. And if I use the language that they're using, they have such strong association to that current language, they'll never be able to see it from another perspective. So in that standpoint, I probably would use an analogy or an industry insight type of a story that uses different language to help them see it from a different point of view instead of going right at it. Kind of like I did with the pendulums. Like it's something totally different, and then I connected it back. That's probably where I would do that. As we get later in the cycle, ideally, we're understanding more about what they're trying to accomplish. ideally, we know more about the political map and how the stakeholders relate. And that's when I start to move more into using their language specifically, because we're facilitating their buying process. And so, yes, we're doing that all the time. But in reality, we should understand more and more as we have more interactions. So I tend to really focus on using that language kind of midpoint to later in this cycle, because that's when they're really talking about it more internally. And I want to make sure that they understand that I understand kind of what we're doing. So if that didn't answer your question, maybe put a follow-up in the chat, and I'll do my best to circle back to that. All right. So Stephen, any suggestions on how to apply these methods with increased velocity of deals? Yeah. So it's kind of similar to what I said with SMB. I hesitate to go here because I got my bell rung one time because somebody disagreed. I was like, well, it's the truth. Sometimes when you've got a lot of velocity, there's ways to prepare quickly and to have, well-defined processes in high velocity organizations. And that would be to what I found helpful, use templates. Hey, these are the messages that I know work in this industry for these personas, and kind of have that mapped out. And then, engage in conversation to understand the top 2 or 3 things that you need to understand about their decision-making. If we can get to like a departmental outcome, that's really helpful. A question that I've found helps me get to that really quickly is just say, hey, Stephen, what's the energy behind this? Like what's driving you all to look at solving this problem? What happened? And that tends to, it facilitates a response at a strategic or departmental level, usually. And that kind of helps me see the broader picture. And then sometimes it's like your experience and intuition that fills in the operational stuff in these high velocity deals. I think the other thing that's a reality is, some people will kind of say you shouldn't do discovery on the fly. And I was like, yeah, in the ideal situation, you shouldn't. But the reality is we're going to be in situations like this that are improvised, where I didn't expect it. I don't know what you're going to ask. And this is a skill we need to develop as well. And so it would be focusing on, okay, in the moment, before I get into a demo segment, what I could do, Stephen, is I say, hey, the next thing we're going to look at is how to improve velocity. Stephen, from your perspective, I might ask you a question about how you currently do something. So I'm looking to get current desired impact really quickly, 90 seconds or so. And then I'm going to probably do the same demo I was going to do. The data is not going to change, but the way I talk about it might change just in time based on the interaction that we had. And then when I come back to the close of it, instead of delivering kind of a generic benefit, Stephen, I might bring you back in and say, okay, so we've just seen this and this. Stephen, what impact do you think that would make in your organization? That's a direct way to say it. You could soften it if you want to, but that way you're kind of bringing them into the conversation and they're contributing as much to the message as you are. I found that to be really helpful when it was higher volume, which sometimes we don't have as much detail as we'd like to. How much time do we have? Okay, so Caleb said, how long did it take to develop this process? Caleb, I think you're asking like to develop the thought process around it. It's kind of a hard question to ask. It's been a work in progress for a long time. Really, the genesis of this was a deal that I got involved in probably 15 years ago. It was a 4-day demo, about 300 people in the audience. It was a public safety organization in Georgia. And we were trying to build our footprint in Georgia. And the truth is we chased an RFP. The RFP was a competitor's RFP. We knew it. We had very little chance of winning, but it was a big fish. And so we were like, let's go for it. And so we get in there. It's scripted. It's like, 4 days of scripted demo was really tough. And we get in there, first hour, it's brutal. It's not going well at all. Zero engagement, like just going through requirements, like the consultants being really hard on me. And so I talked to the team at the break, said, we got nothing to lose. We might as well flip this. And so I took the next section was the corporate overview. And I said, hey, I'm going to trade my time on the corporate overview. I'll do it in 10 minutes. I'd like to take 50 of that and bring the executives down front. And we whiteboarded kind of their whole process and what they really were trying to get out of it. And it was just on the fly. And we ended up winning the deal. And we attributed it to like recognizing that we had no resonance, we're going to lose anyway. We might as well try something different. And so what we did is we reverse engineered like the questions that we asked, what we tried to understand, and how that fit into the demo. And that really started with Dan Conway's our present CEO. He was my EVP at that time. He and I sat down and we reverse engineered how we won that deal. And that kind of became this process of how we did that. And then we melded that with work that Bob Reefstall did and some of the early work he did on discovery. And that's kind of what came into this process as how we've done that. So Caleb, I don't know if that fully answered the question, but it's been 15 years in progress and it continues to evolve as the buyer's needs change and that sort of thing. So, all right. I think that's all of our questions. I've got just maybe 2 more points that I want to make just at the end of this, and then I'll turn it back over to our moderator. And so let me find this one more time. I want to share the impact. Like, why should we do this? So I want to tell a story real quickly of one of our customers that we took through this process. We measured their progress over a 3-year period. So we looked at early indicators of success, and we looked at did it stick over 3 years, because it's one thing to make a difference in 3 months. It's another thing to do it over 3 years. And so this was a global enterprise software company. And what we found is as they went through this process, they saw a 45% improvement in win rate across the whole team globally. Massive difference in what they did. So what that meant is they did fewer deals than they were doing. They won a lot more. So they grew while providing margin to be more precise. And that was really their strategy. Their SMB team decreased time to close by 12%. When you're thinking about a 30-day close, that's a massive difference. It really sped up their time to close. Their key account team reduced their time to close by 56%, a huge contribution. So when we focus on precision, which is really what we did with this client, it makes a massive difference in the results. And to be honest, yours and my quality of life, we're able to be more precise. It's more rewarding to do it that way. And so this makes a massive difference. We do want to offer something for you. We have some of the classes where we teach this content. We have open enrollment classes available. You can find those on our website 2winglobal.com. Go to the events tab, take a screenshot of this. We've got a discount code that's available to you if you'd like to maybe use some education reimbursement money for this. 20% off if you want to use DEMOFEST 2023 as your discount code. It's available to anybody that came to DEMOFEST. It's only available through Friday. So if you want to do it, kind of get on it. But just something we wanted to offer to you all just as a thank you for coming to the session and attending. And what I would say just in conclusion, prioritize what we're doing to increase momentum, focus on buyer motivations to influence decision-making, have meaningful human interactions to build trust. If we can do that, we'll be more precise in our interactions, and it's going to help us get things done more quickly. Team, I appreciate you joining the session. Thanks for the interaction. I'm going to pass it back over to David for some final thoughts.
Thank you, Chad, for such an engaging presentation and being here today. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I'd like to call out our DEMOFEST game, where each session you attend and each session feedback survey you fill out gets you points to win some of our awesome prizes. We're really excited to be bringing DEMOFEST on the road again as DEMOFEST X. Please join us in Dublin, London, and New York later this year. You can register to join any of these events at demofest.com. We also encourage you to stop by our expo hall to visit our premier partners of DEMOFEST. Remember, there's no transfer money involved in this event, so all of our partners have gone above and beyond to contribute to making this event a success for all of you. And again, thanks again, all of you, for joining us for improving precision to accelerate deal progression. And a huge thank you and shout out to Chad Wilson for that valuable insight and knowledge. Up on the screen are the upcoming sessions. You will automatically be pushed to the next session in your track, and you can switch tracks or sessions by toggling the agenda tab at the top left of your screen. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, team.